Good afternoon, Chris. It's nice to see you on this, miserable and moody day in North Wales. Anyway, how's it with you?
Yeah, it's good with me, but I'm afraid the weather is pretty similar. So in that sense, not the greatest weather start to May, and I guess really for markets as well, hasn't it? It was a difficult April. We've obviously had some terrible headlines year to date, but many changes generally in the broader financial world in terms of interest rates going up, the return of inflation or more overt return of inflation, and matters such as that. But as we've talked about before, matters such as jobs remain positive. We fortunately are moving away from COVID-19 challenges slowly but surely, at least in this country, and the weather is going to be warmer over the summer. Fingers crossed on that front.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on that point then, Chris, because you touched on it about COVID being fairly controlled here now in the sense that we're moving on from it in a lot of ways. But let's look at China and Shanghai and the major city lockdowns that we've seen there. What's going to be, or what has been the consequence of those lockdowns to the world economy?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it continues despite the fact that actually when you look at the number of COVID cases in Shanghai and particularly Beijing as well, it's minimal versus what we've seen even in this country over recent months. We've obviously generally seen an opening up of the economy. So the Chinese are very cautious. They clearly want zero COVID cases. I don't think they're ever going to achieve that, but they're still pushing for it. So I guess good luck to them. The impact, as you say, on the economy generally in both China and the world is notable. It does slow down growth. It does make supply of business a bit more difficult. It does impact the Chinese economy, and it's obviously indirectly most other economies around the world. It does have an impact. And obviously this comes at a time when we're seeing higher interest rates here in the UK or in the States, slower growth, sad issues in Ukraine, the challenges there, all issues which are impacting on growth, unfortunately. So again, another negative out there, which has been taken poorly by financial markets year to date. But is it alone something to be really worried about? I think the COVID-19 challenge, fortunately, is globally moving away from us. It will shift into being a cold or a different form of a cold. But let's face it, it's been a really tricky last couple of years from that backdrop for many obvious reasons. And China is the only remaining place really where it's really impacting their economy.
Yeah, absolutely. You touched on another point there, obviously the sad ongoing crisis that we're seeing in Ukraine. That is obviously giving us more geopolitical risk, and it's certainly fueling a lot of the volatility that we're seeing at the moment. So if we think ahead, can we expect to see at some stage this year maybe a calmer period for the markets, or is it going to be obviously subject to the clear dangers out there?
It's always impacted by matters, both positive and negative. You're absolutely right, Rob. Sadly, geopolitically, we're having to look more closely at these issues than we actually have done for quite a while. It's not that those of us who are a bit older, I guess, and can remember back into previous decades and matters such as that, we've seen these challenges before. So geopolitical matters and uncertainties will always be there at some level. But as I may have said in previous months, for me, the challenge is really, particularly for Russia, is from a geographic perspective, it's really poor news for their economy, really terrible news for the Russian economy. And consequently, it really puts pressure on them as this year develops to actually look for an agreement for a way where they can at least continue selling their oil and their gas and other related trade matters. Otherwise, the medium-term impact on the Russian economy will be very negative. As you can see already, European countries, including, let's face it, the UK, will be looking for alternative suggestions instead of Russian oil and gas. And of course, many of those agree and are consistent with many of the green-friendly matters which we're trying to shift all our economies towards in the 2020s and 2030s. In any case, it just helps sort of push that even further. So really, I think for geopolitical issues, we'll always have them. And hopefully many of them can be moved through quickly and carefully. And I really hope that matters in Ukraine improve. The rationale for it, even from a Russian perspective, is very clear to me there. But I'm really hopeful that the people of Ukraine can push forward and could go back to what they would regard as a much more friendly and happy and successful life for them as we've seen in previous years.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you said, it's an ongoing situation which ourselves and all the investment partners that we work with look at closely and try and understand how best to navigate. I suppose that's the big benefit of active management, isn't it, Chris? Let's end on something positive then. So what is out there at the moment that should excite investors? Because ultimately, investing is a long-term strategy. We're not just necessarily worried about the next few months, we're worried about the next few years and even the next decades for younger clients looking at the retirement planning. So what's out there at the moment that should be getting us excited going into the future?
Well, the good news is that if you think about a world which is still getting richer, and that's a good thing. I know being rich is never perceived as something people should aspire to, but honestly, in terms of a capitalist economy, it's a positive. It makes people's life stronger and better and nicer. And the countries of the world, particularly the emerging markets of the world, are trying to push their populations to become richer, to live longer, to have better lives, for their countries to be stronger. Just similar things that we've seen in our own country, within Europe, within North America, for the last few decades. So that's the really good news still about the world, that it is still changing and improving in a manner which is a positive for all investors. What that means is that you shouldn't be putting all your money in the bank account. You might now get a small interest rate thanks to some of the recent Bank of England interest rate increases, but it's still very minimal. You still won't be covering inflation by having all of your money in the bank account. You've got to be looking to put some money into investments. Yes, of course, to buy a house and do many other things, friendly things, nice things in life, going on holiday, doing things for the family and related. But still, investments remain the best place from a medium-term perspective. I guess we're talking about over the next few years, and of course for younger people, the next few decades. That is the best way to build the backdrop of your money and to build its worth over time. So as Warren Buffett famously said, you've got to be greedy when others are fearful. And there is no doubt people are fearful for many reasons about the world today, and of course the world's equity markets. But therefore, being a consistent investor, not being too scared to put your money back into the investment markets, or to continue putting your money into the investment markets during times of strife and uncertainty, is actually probably the best opportunity to make those investments. So that would still be my observation. 2022 is not impossible. There are still some positives out there. So don't be too worried. Please don't panic, and look forward not only to a nicer, warmer summer, but actually I'm still hopeful of some better returns, not just this year, but as the 2020s develops. And certainly better than what you would get from having all the money under your bed or in your back garden, or I guess even in the bank account.
Yeah, good point. I know during lockdown, a lot of money was definitely spent in the back garden on ornaments and flowers and everything else, wasn't it? So there we go. Brilliant. Thanks for the roundup as always, Chris. No doubt it will fly by and we'll be sat here at the start of June, and let's see where the next 4 weeks go. And I think between now and then we've got another bank holiday coming up. So an extended break for many, hopefully.
Absolutely, indeed.